Hello, my name's Hannes, this is Painting by Letters, and today I want to set myself a challenge. A significant reason this channel exists is to attempt to improve my own painting, so I thought I ought to set myself a test. When I was doing the Void Dragon, which came out last week, I said that it felt like the best paint job I think I've ever done, so I thought it might be fun to set myself a bit of a challenge and to see what I've really learned. The form of this test will be speed painting. I'm not sure if Midwinter Mini started it, but at least that's where I first sort of came across it. The idea essentially is to pick a model and to use whatever techniques you can to paint it as quick as possible. Obviously we're aiming at a tabletop standard here, we're not going any further than that. The rough outline is to set yourself a goal, pick a model and give it a go. So, my challenge set by myself: 1 mini, 1 hour, 1 attempt. Essentially I'm asking if I can beat the clock. I racked my brains quite a bit about what mini to do. It shouldn't be something too big, but I also thought I would be chickening out if it was something too simple, so I decided to pick Eisenhorn. This model comes courtesy of the Black Library series that Games Workshop did. It's quite an intricate model and was an absolute pain to build as well, but I'm kind of excited by it. Just to very quickly get through the build, it comes through on 3 sprues. Pretty much all of the pieces are incredibly small. I will say though that the resin had a really bizarre feel to it compared to even the other resins that I've used. I don't know if it's Forge World resin or something, if it's different. It had a really weird texture to it and felt quite coarse on the outside of it. There are an ungodly quantity of bubbles, mistakes. The mold lines were really quite horrendous. I mentioned when I did my Trazen video that I really hate resin as something to be working with. It doesn't agree with me at all, and this model was no exception. But given that it's only really supposed to be used for a bit of a challenge and a bit of fun, I'm not going to care that much if when looking very closely you can see bubbles and gaps and stuff like that. I'll get over it, that doesn't really bother me. So once it was painted up, this is what we end up with: a very intricate model with lots going on. Won't brilliantly show up just in the black, but there's a hell of a lot going on here. On the front we've got quite a lot of texture along the body. There's lots of individual pieces that are obviously all going to have to be picked out. We've got this staff across the back that's also very close with these kind of other items to the flow of the cape. It's going to make it quite awkward to paint in there. The gun itself touches the cape on the inside, so that's going to be quite hard to catch. And also he's sort of wearing a kind of like a kilt skirt thing underneath the cape, so we're going to have to decide if to paint those differently. Getting inside to these trousers is going to be nightmarish as well, plus the base is also really quite nicely modelled. So within the confines of this challenge, I think it's perfectly reasonable for me to count planning as not part of the process. So, to plan. First and foremost, it's going to make sense to do this as a slap chop. Let's use lots of dry brushing to bring out lots of the texture, and then essentially lots and lots of contrast paints over the top to bring it all together. So what we need to do, roughly speaking, is we're going to need to do a lot of dry brushing to start. That's where we're going to get our texture. This will mean that we're starting with the detail, arguably. Following this, there's going to be a lot of contrast. Once we've done with contrast, we're going to have to do our metallics. I'm thinking after this, I'm also going to add in some kind of wash step to bring it all together. And then if we've got time after all of that, we will come back and do some detail as well. Okay, so we've got everything set up here. I've got my Eisenhorn, I've got a timer. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And we'll just see how far I get, essentially. So, yeah, here goes. I'm already trying to think about where the light will be hitting and trying to put more grey on those areas. Already starting to see lots of that detail come out, even just after the first 2 or so dry brushes. Although I'm already significantly behind the time that I'd set out. Right, I'm going to try and do a really mild white highlight, just to finish it all off. Okay, dry brushing step done, and it only took 8 minutes, not 5, so I'm already behind. Wonderful. But we can see that that's pulled out all the details, so initially with a dark grey, then with a lighter grey, and then with a white with a couple of mixes in the middle. We've got some texture along here, probably texture that we can draw out a little bit more. I think I ruined that. Never mind, it's now taken 9 minutes. So the next steps are basically a hell of a lot of contrast. I'm thinking it probably makes sense to start with the cloak, which I was thinking kind of a dark purple. So I've got some Shylish here, and we'll start with that. I know this is heresy, but a lot of this will be just straight out the pot as it's contrast, and given that it's speed painting, I don't see much point slowing down. One of the annoying things about resin models, and I don't know if you'll be able to see this, but right there's a gate that went right through the middle of a flat panel that was incredibly hard to clean. I've not done a very good job, if I'm honest. And with the contrast over the top, given that we all now know where to look, it will be incredibly obvious that there's something there. It's just another way in which I think resin is a very inferior product compared to the plastics. Okay, so I was hoping to do all of these straight out the pot, but given that the purple has actually taken quite a long time to clean up with the pooling, I think I am going to actually water them down a little bit, just to see if that will stop some of the more egregious problems I'm noticing with this paint. Although, having said that, it has been nightmarish to get in already, given that I set myself a challenge that it had to be one miniature. I also included in that, rightly or wrongly, that it should already be stuck together. I am severely regretting that choice now, but never mind. I do want one of the kind of cloak layers to be black. I'm tempted, if anything, to actually leave his undercoat as this kind of grey colour, maybe really watered down Black Legion over the top. For the leathery bits, I'm going to use snakebite leather. As this is going to be a darker colour but also a stronger one, I'm also going to be trying to use this mostly out the pot. Now I see it over the trousers, annoyingly I think that whole back cape, the internal one, should be the same colour. So I'm going to bite the bullet and paint over what I've just done in this colour as well. We've got that kind of brown trousers. I'll zoom in a little bit there. So we've got sort of brown trousers and this kind of quilt thing, all done in brown. Then we've got the kind of the back cape in that purple. One of the things detail-wise I'm really going to have to do is to draw out some of the detail along this cloak. But at least for now, we've got a bit of a two-tone. Just as a thought, let's use the Kellyan green to pull out some of those details across the upper body. Just as it's a nice blue contrast that can be darkened down quite nicely as well with subsequent goes over. So some of you might be challenging why I'm starting with the darker colours first, whether that completely makes sense. The reason being is if you go over a darker contrast with a lighter one, it barely makes any kind of colour change, which means that when I've been messing about with contrast in my own time, I've been finding out that starting with the darker colours, not the lighter ones, is much easier. It's always easier to pull out the grey to fix over where you've made some kind of horrendous mistake than it is, in my opinion, to pick out the lighter contrast colours that have very limited impact over the darker ones. Okay, so my camera overheated, which is hilarious. So we reconvene about 20 minutes later. And this is as far as we've got. He's not looking ideal, is he? This is not going too well. But never mind. Let's talk about what we've got left. So really this cape does need fixing at some point, but that might not be possible within the remit of the challenge. We'll see. Realistically, we need a slightly different accent colour for these bits. I'm thinking one of the light greens that I've got. Once I've done that, I'm then going to pick out the skin and the hair. I'm going to grab the black contrast wash to do the boots, some of the kind of bits going across the body and stuff like that. Then once I've done that, really, I'm going to do obviously the bone up there, but that's going to only take a second or two. And then break out the metallics and see how quick I can get through it. At some juncture as well, I need to pick the purple out because I think this up here should be purple, realistically, but I want to do the skin and hair first. And there's a couple of bits of missing purple in here, and also this line down here should be in purple as well. I'm hoping that when we do the metallics, this model really comes alive and we start seeing a bit more of its potential, because right now I'm not really seeing it. Right, let's crack on then. It's hoping that green looks better once it's dried, but here we are. The nice thing with Black Legion is it can be used to darken other contrasts quite nicely. So you can see here that I'm just sort of using it as a bit of an all over wash, just to kind of push those blues down a little bit in saturation. I'm going to do the same on the trousers, but not on the cape, just to give it a bit of visual difference. I'm going to pick out those shoulder pads in a very rich blue, just because I feel like lots of the colours up until now are quite subdued. So just having a bit of colour over the top wouldn't hurt the model too much. Not all of this has worked as intended, but I think I'm going to take out the metallics and see how much basically I can do to fix this. I'm going to stop us there. Let's have a closer look. I'm not gonna lie, I've painted better miniatures, but I guess that wasn't really the point, was it? It was just to sort of have a go and see with some modern painting techniques what's doable in an hour. I do think I got closer to fixing the cloak and giving it a bit more visual interest, so that really came alive very quickly at the end. The skin doesn't look too bad, potentially a little darker than I thought it was going to be, but never mind. I think the big thing that lets this model down looking at it is a lot of the points of visual interest across the body are just desaturated into non-existence. So we've got this kind of belt across here, it's gone. Got the belt across here, it's completely gone. I think me trying to knock back the bright I think me trying to knock back the bright contrast has completely killed the scrolls across the body. They just sort of muted out a little bit. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give myself probably another 15 minutes and see what I can do very quickly with some acrylics. Before I do that, I'm going to take some photos of it, and I'll put these on screen now so that you can kind of see what the model looks like. Just to bring this video to a close, I'm going to be honest with you, the model doesn't look great, but I really enjoyed the experience. I'd really recommend this as something really different. I take my time when I model paint, I really do, and I try and take it dead slowly. And trying to do the same thing quickly was actually really quite fun. It's a bit of a disaster, but I would really recommend it if you're looking to just have a little bit of fun. And probably what I'm going to do is in about 6 months time, I'll strip this model and I'll repaint it with a better look. Anyway, I just want to say thank you so much for watching my descent into pure madness. I've been Hannes, this has been Painting by Letters, and keep safe out there.